The more you dig through Helldivers' tough automaton-like exterior into its squishy Terminator-esque interior, you will quickly find that the game has a lot more to offer than the simple surface-level aspects of gameplay. As you ratchet up the difficulty levels, you quickly find yourself needing to dig deeper and deeper into your arsenal of basic tips and tricks that far exceed your Helldivers basic training. With that in mind, here are some more advanced combat tips which I found particularly helpful when progressing in Helldivers 2. Do not sleep on the auto cannon. In fact, alongside the grenade launcher setup mentioned in the previous video, this is probably another must-have in a squad composition. It makes very short work of larger bugs and mechs, and is particularly effective against the crusher/charger enemies that I've seen causing people trouble as we get to grips with the game. You can of course use this solo, and it works a charm here, but it really comes into its own when one of your squad steps in and crews the weapon for you. It allows you to pretty much go fully automatic if you ensure they have the backpack for the weapon equipped, and the rate of fire here is absolutely insane. Just make sure that you reload before you empty the clip fully, as this improves the rate of fire and uptime considerably. You'll have armored enemies fearing you in no time here, folks. Speaking of armored enemies, when you see a crusher, don't do the usual panic and mindlessly shoot at them. You can take the limbs off methodically, and this is very easy in terms of an elimination method. And aside from the auto cannon, focus fire that limb with any weaponry. The anti-tank rocket launcher is particularly good at this as well. It makes really short work of them. On the topic of making short work of enemies, have you seen one of these lying around yet? Most people find out the hard way and shoot this, inflicting about 12,000 damage to anyone caught in its blast. That's because this is a tactical nuke of sorts, affectionately known as a Hell Bomb or H-Bomb. Make a mental note of these devices and where they are on the map, because they can become incredibly useful during a fight. A prime example of this occurred last night on stream during a community match. We lured a Bile Titan towards one and simply detonated it, and this was an instant one-shot, making life much easier for us, which was incredibly satisfying and adds yet another element of bug dispatch into the game. Stratagems are an area which is still too early in the day to claim which ones are S tier and which ones are the best, but there are certainly some emerging favourites and pertinent points to be aware of when assessing their effectiveness. In the previous tips video, we discussed the EMS Orbital Strike being a superb crowd control candidate. On this topic, applying status effects can also have really desirable outcomes when trying to manipulate enemy movement speed. The Napalm Strike and the 380mm strikes burn enemies and also have the added benefit, of course, of completely annihilating them. In some instances, this even stops their advances completely. Incredibly useful in higher difficulties, folks. Incendiary grenades are also great for area denial and applying this effect again, so don't sleep on this. And don't feel when you're picking stratagems, oh, I've got to pick the most high DPS damaging setups, because actually if everyone does that, when you start progressing through the game, you can get overrun very quickly. These stratagems take a while to get called in, and if we just throw them in mindlessly and the bugs are running or the automatons are running everywhere, you don't get your bang for buck with your strikes, and that is not helpful in the slightest, folks. So if you think about setting up your stratagems to have CC abilities in there mixed in with damage, communicate what you're going to do with your party, you will have a much easier time as you progress through the difficulties. People also overlook the beauty and the effectiveness of keeping it simple with those eagle stratagems. The strafe is near enough an instant call-in, and when you get the ship module that halves eagle stratagem call-in time by 50%, this could be an absolute lifesaver for both you and your party. It has an easy attack pattern to predict, and it's one of those call-ins that gives you an instant result when you're in a pinch. It's not the coolest looking or the highest damaging, but it has minimal risk of collateral damage and could be an absolute clutch move to bring in. With these points on stratagems in mind, this one is incredibly important but very overlooked. Know your role and set up for it. If you have a squad you can talk with before a dive, discuss this. Who's taking the autocannon to deal with the heavy armored mobs? Who's taking the grenade launcher and supply pack to deal with general horde clear? Who's taking EMS for CC? Who's taking incendiary grenades, etc, etc. I personally enjoy a support DPS role in my squad. I set up with EMS, orbital gatling, and a grenade launcher and supply pack. This means I'm in charge of CC and horde clear. I prioritize setting up squad mates for effective stratagem drops over my own kill count. I aim to create space and allow them to be measured and calculated when dropping the huge bombardment, so we reap the benefits as a party. Take this approach and your squad mates will thank you for it. Something which I will be really thankful for on that note is if you could could drop the channel a subscribe. I've been blown away by the amount of support you've been giving the channel and the streams, and I'm eternally grateful. It really helps me out. Thank you. When you're in a pinch or you sense your demise is close at hand, preemptively use your healing booster. This works like a heal over time as opposed to a flash heal. For those of you who are MMO heads out there, you'll know exactly what I mean, but essentially what this means is your booster will heal you for a designated amount of time for a certain percentage, effectively healing you through intense damage windows. Another excellent tip related to this is to take the armor that gives you the medkit passive. This increases your stim capacity by 2 and also increases your stim effect duration by 2 seconds, which further adds the emphasis around the point that we've just made about leveraging the heal over time effect. It's particularly effective when you're approaching stalker ridden areas, especially nests. You can get a really good version of this armor through the Twitch drops that are currently active. On the note of stalkers, make sure you prioritize stalker nests. They are an absolute pain if you leave them unchecked. They will also really rough you up if you don't respect just how savage they can be. Call these out as soon as you see them and call them out on the battlefield. If you see a cloaked stalker, call it out, mark it. Be careful if you want to try and be Rambo and take out a nest on your own. They really don't take a liking to have their homes wrecked, and they have a special icon on the map which you can identify these with. Don't sleep on this, folks. It can absolutely end your mission. Of course, things do inevitably go pear-shaped, and you will of course die, and your service to democracy will be forever remembered. With this in mind, if you sense you and your squad mates are about to be ended, don't do the classic panic and start frantically trying to punch in loads of different stratagems, or maybe reinforce the 2 people that have already died when you're getting overwhelmed and then subsequently end up dead yourself. Instead, accept defeat, accept that you are an expendable resource and that you will be reinforced. Take one for the team, prepare the reinforce, but don't throw it. Keep it kind of prepped and cocked in your hand. Let yourself die, and what this will mean is when you die, you will drop the reinforce, and this will activate, instantly reinforcing the front line, and you will be back in the game. This is an absolute mission saver. When you're reinforcing, use this opportunity to your advantage. If you're dealing with larger enemies, try to line up the hell pod and land it on them. This will insta-gib enemies. You'll also be able to use this approach with nests, and if you're looking to gain an elevated vantage point, take this opportunity to line up your drop with an area of terrain that will afford you this. The most important tip, have fun. Enjoy the chaos. Make sure you're a positive team player. We've been playing community games on Twitch via the PhaseShifter community Discord, and it's been an absolute joy seeing the level of positivity people are bringing to this game. Check out this next video if you're looking for 15 more tips and tricks which I wish I knew when playing Helldivers 2. See you in the next one.